Hi everybody, it's Matt Robinson. Welcome to the latest edition of the Writer's Block. Here we are at the Needham channel, and yet we haven't had a local author in a while. That's why I'm really glad to welcome Kevin Banks today. Kevin is a Needhamite who supported the local music and journalism worlds and has gone on to greener pastures, including writing a book. Sounds kind of familiar. Anyway, he is an art director and an author who left Needham in the 80s to go to New York to study at the School of Visual Arts. After returning to Boston, he worked as art director for the beloved and dearly missed Boston Phoenix, and now runs Claymore Design, a creative consultancy where he continues to produce bold work across digital and analog formats. When in New York, he lived in the famed and perhaps infamous Midtown YMCA residence known as the Sloan, and that is the material for his wonderful new book, revisits the personalities, trials and tribulations of New York in the 80s, and I'm really excited to have him here. Welcome, Kevin. Great to have you.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back home.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Yeah. So driving up to the station today, what were the most notable differences in our fair town?
McDonald's got bigger,
Okay.
which is always a good thing. And Dragon Chef, the Chinese food place, is still there. I used to hit that pretty weekly in the 80s. I think everybody did, because they stayed open late.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But other than that, maybe the traffic.
Yeah. Yeah. They're still trying to figure that out, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what got you into art, and what got you to New York in the first place?
Good question. I think art's always been in the family. My uncles were graphic designers, and my dad was an architect. And then with me at age 3, just grabbing my mother's lipstick and doing murals on the bedroom walls to her chagrin. And then just rolling with it through grammar school and then high school. And Needham at the time, not only a great sports town, but the art department in Needham High School was tremendous and really got behind me and focusing my college ideas with a strong portfolio. The art teachers, specifically Bob Enos, who guided me on how to put a portfolio together and how to apply to schools. And I did apply to some in Massachusetts, but New York was really calling, and I ended up going to the School of Visual Arts in Midtown.
What had been your exposure to the New York scene before going to school there? Before
going to school, I think my New York medicine was always Saturday Night Live, because back in the day, just starting with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, those were my baseball player heroes. If you have sports heroes, I had comedians as heroes: Gilda Radner, Jane Curtin, those guys, Bill Murray. I mean, come on. So that's what put New York on the map for me, and it made it seem reachable. Live TV, it's like you could go there and witness it, taking place.
Were there people at the school that you knew that drew you there in particular?
No, it was just kind of a long shot. I remember reading the Boston Sunday Globe, and some of the illustrations inside the Boston Globe magazine were beautiful. Artists like Marshall Aresman and Brad Holland and those guys, and it really synced up with some of the art I was doing in high school. So I think I got a little closer each time I studied different artists.
How did you hear about it and get to the Sloan community in the first place?
How did I get to? Well, the way people get to Sloan is they apply and they get admitted to the School of Visual Arts, and they hear that they have a dormitory on 34th and 9th. I guess you send a check, and they show up and they see what that is, and they probably throw up or cry, because it was a 15-story. It looked like an insane asylum. It was great to have all the artists and the students in one building, but it was the Sloan House YMCA. So 1/3 of the building was students, 1/3 was visitors from other countries and transients, and the top third were outpatients from a mental hospital. So it made for a lot of good parties. Yeah.
What were there faculty and staff from the school, or was it an official school residence? Or just
no,
sort of became
the schools,
a community?
Multiple schools, like other schools. I know FIT and I think NYU and Parsons leased out floors and called it dorms. So you could say YMCA, you could say dorm, but it was a kind of a melting pot for creative misfits.
Were there other people that you knew who were there?
No, I just went in cold. My dad dropped me off, and I didn't know anybody. And I think I went across the street and got a six-pack and just set about meeting everybody in one night.
Did you have roommates?
No, every room in Sloan is 7 by 11 feet, little jail cells. So you get your own room, which is a good thing because sometimes it helps to go in there and close the door because it got pretty loud sometimes. We didn't have roommates, but you built really strong bonds and friendships, which is the foundation of the book.
So I was going to ask, there are people there who you're still in touch with now?
Oh yeah. I am the administrator of the Facebook group for Sloan for the past 18 years, and I host all the reunions, which is so fun, and the basis of the research for the book.
Right. So it's a lot of great story. Were there other artists that you've collaborated with professionally, or was it more just kind of personal relationships?
For the book, no, that was an independent project that really picked up steam during COVID, and I started writing like a monster, which was strange because I had been a picture guy, design guy for my whole life, and I thought about doing a graphic novel, but when I sat down to do it, it looked like maybe a 20-year project. And my wife had suggested, all these stories that I hear about at dinner every single night. Why don't you write them down as one-pagers? And I think I started doing that during like a Patriots game during the commercials. And one-pager became 3-pagers, became 40 chapters.
Yeah. You call them episodes and smoke breaks. Episodes
and smoke breaks. Well, no chapter is longer than 10 pages because we can't, get off our phones long enough to read. And then there are one-page chapters for, which I call smoke breaks, which literally take a break after reading. Go outside and have a smoke.
So you clearly had unfortunately had your modern day audience in mind.
I did, but also I felt like I was the audience. Like for those 4 years that I was writing it, during and post COVID, in order to get it done, I worked on it, for all the time, anytime I had free time. But in order to stay interested in it, I had to make myself laugh.
What sort of impact do you think you had on the community while you were there?
on the Sloan SVA community?
And the school, yeah.
That's a loaded question because we did some damage and we did some good stuff too. My friends and I were kind of a tightly knit group, sort of a cabal of troublemakers, and I think it's something that, is a reflection of my early days in Needham where we got a little rambunctious. There was a lot of drugs, a lot of drinking, partying, and there was nobody that ever said, of authority that said no. So I say the first year we just caused a lot of trouble. The second year we realized if you're going to cause trouble, you got to be more organized about it or they're going to get thrown out. And we, as a joke, decided to run for student government, and we won. So now we had offices, $40,000 budget, and continued to cause trouble, but through great parties.
What medium did you come in with, and did your palette expand through your studies?
I majored in illustration, but at that time, in 1985, a few years later, Macintosh showed up on the scene and started to change the way you think about graphics. And I had always had an appreciation for type and images and how they work together. And so I majored in illustration, but I loved design. And a few years later, when I graduated, I got a job at the Phoenix as a illustrator and then as a designer, because those two disciplines have to work together.
What would you say like the greatest change in your artistic style that developed over your years there? Was it more from the school or from the living situation? That's
a cool question. When I got back to Boston, I noticed, whenever I said School of Visual Arts, people's eyebrows went up, like, what are you doing here? Why didn't you stay in New York? And things like that. But SVA taught us to draw quickly and draw often. So when I took a job, say at the Phoenix, for example, I produced work very quickly in mass quantities, and a lot of it had a voice or an edge already built into it. SVA had a really strong illustration program, still does.
So with your facility with drawing, you still decided to do this as a text-based book as opposed to a graphic novel.
Right, because I think what COVID did, and probably for a lot of people, is have them rethink their direction. And I had been on the same path of, I was an illustrator in the 90s and became an art director, and then an independent creative director when the Phoenix closed. And I thought, I started to feel a little bit of frustration set in over, is this all there is? I was unchallenged or something. And the industry was taking a beating post-COVID, and then AI showed up, and it really changed the game. And just to, there's people that just have to create on a regular basis. I just started writing things down, and it started to grow and grow and grow. And I have been published before. The Phoenix did publish a few feature stories of strange content, which is fun to write a feature story than illustrate it. So I think that was the reason they let me, cross that bridge. But I did like the idea of being a visual person and then sneaking into the writer's room, as a trespasser, and then writing, a 300-page book. I feel like I'm being a bit of a troublemaker in that respect.
But these were stories that you had been telling.
I'd been telling for 20 years. That I call them barstool stories. And barstool stories are when you're at a party or something, you're off aside with somebody else and you speak in a certain clipped tone and you don't edit yourself. That's a barstool story. It's a different type of English, and sometimes it's very raw. And in order for me to finish this, I had to write the book honestly. So there's a lot of material in the book. The book is rated R. It's not for kids. It's written in the voice of a 20-year-old who hasn't been too far in the world, other than maybe Boston and New York City. So he's a bit naive. The narrator is me, and the two other principals in the book, my wingmen as I call them, are my two buddies who are my next door neighbors. And the three of us team up and kind of run amok amongst Sloan and Midtown.
Have the people who are mentioned or referred to taken umbrage, or did they appreciate that the story is now being told, or what's the response been?
The response has been overwhelmingly positive because I changed everyone's name. I played it. I even changed my own name. I teamed up with a publishing consultant, and first thing he advised, change all these names. And don't put in that chapter about that girl or that guy. So I think I wrote 55 chapters, but I only used 40. Because part of what the advice I got as a first-time writer is like, you don't need to put your whole heart, guts, and blood and soul in every book. You need to put the best stuff that tells the story. So these chapters tell a story chronologically.
Working with an outside editor consultant, how were you able to keep that raw energy in the book?
My editors, and there were many, were volunteers. They were a film critic from the Boston Phoenix, some staff writers, some buddies of mine from New York that I would send a chapter or two. I never sent them the whole book because I think that would be a big ask. So I sent 2 or 3 chapters and got opinions on it. And they said, well, you're repeating yourself here, or this could be fleshed out. And that's how it developed. And finally, when I had enough content, I contacted the publishing consultant, and with his help, we turned it into a book.
So did you notice lessons from one reader going into other places, or are there different voices through the book?
It's my voice throughout the book, yeah.
But I mean, in terms of like, if you got advice from one of the editors who did chapters 1 through 3,
yep.
Did you carry that lesson through, did you go through the rest of the book with an eye towards whatever they advised?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
there is consistency.
When I started writing, and it was past tense. Like, we used to go to this club called, Limelight or something. Right. Ultimately, a more impactful, reading experience for the reader is, we are in this club. I am walking into this club, and there's a band, or there's right. a fight, or there's someone's being attacked or something.
Bret Easton Ellis, Bright Lights, Big City type stuff.
Yeah. I think my biggest influence is probably Jim Carroll from the Basketball Diaries, right. which I loved, and then maybe a writing style that is pretty sparse. I feel like a reporter sometimes, kind of like one of my favorites was Bukowski or maybe Kurt Vonnegut.
How do you feel that has this opening up of a new mode of expression for you? Has it changed your trajectory of your career? Has it changed how you look at your graphic work? It's changed a lot. It's like, first of all, why didn't I do this sooner?
This book is taken off a life of its own, and I've never, made a piece of art that has done something like this. I do podcasts, and I've made it onto Matt Robinson's show. So I figure, I've made it.
The big time.
I've made it,
Yeah.
But it's made me think like you don't have to stay in your lane, and it's fun to go out and perhaps fail. But I'm in my 50s, so I don't care. I don't care anymore. So I try everything now. Yeah.
Do you see another? Are you more or less likely to write again now that you've had the experience?
I will if the idea is solid. I don't want to start churning out books just because I did one. But if I get a real fire, like this was fire in my head. If I get another fire in my head, I'm going to have to write it down and see what it looks like. And this, I did not publish this until it was ready. It wasn't like I wanted to make a book on by October. This was years in the making, and when it was ready, when it was good, I was telling a buddy about one of the chapters on my front porch. I think it was right after COVID, and it was kind of a graphic depiction of an event that took place, and he almost threw up on the porch, and that's when I knew it should be a book. When someone has a physical, reaction to your content, I think you're ready to publish.
Did you, being that this was your really first foray into writing, did you eventually kind of settle into a certain time of day? Did you have a process, or was it just as the stories came to you, or just kind of more slapdash and get it together?
So there were two, I wrote just anytime I could, but there were two times that was like really good sweet spot for writing. Is if you're watching a football game and they have all the commercials, the Bud Light and the Ford trucks, and so I turned the volume down and I would do another paragraph. And also, for some reason, during Jeopardy, Jeopardy just wakes up my brain a little bit, and you can remember things. But for the most part, me going upstairs into my office at my house and putting on 80s music, all of it, and immediately throws me back to that period, on the 9th floor. Oh, we listened to New Order, we listened to Killing Joke, and plenty of U2, for the half Irish guys in the room. So yeah, there was a pattern, and I continued to make art and do design assignments for clients, but this was just this little secret thing that I was working on behind the scenes.
Through the book, have you been able to meet people that have, that you are now planning future other projects with, or new clients, or has it been a gateway for you in that way?
I don't know. The biggest audience for the book are Sloan refugees, Sloan survivors, I call them, but also people, friends and family who have teens who are applying to colleges with a dorm element to it. And I jokingly say to them, read Sloan because it's definitely a do's and don'ts for dorm living. But it's also, a celebration of New York, which I'm still in love with the city. I always will be, and how it treated me and what it gave me and what I learned there. So it's a celebration also that I get to see these folks, my friends. There was a reunion in October when I debuted the book, and we're all fatter and balder and grayer, but there's still that same energy and that passion between this group of people that lived in that building.
It sounds like it wasn't a traditional, like were there staff or faculty in the building at all? There weren't like dorm parents or things like that.
There were 2 RAs on each floor, but they sort of blended into the wall and hid in their rooms. And some of them knew not to bother us because they would. It was kind of a thankless job. You couldn't control what was going on in that building. So the RAs, I think they got a free room or something. Okay. So I applied to be an RA once, and that didn't go over well because I had a rep. Yeah.
Were your rooms also studio spaces? Were there people doing their work in them?
The way they set it up for SVA was you had your small cell, and across the hall you shared another cell with your neighbor as your studio.
I see.
7 by 11 feet. So it was pretty crammed. Most of what we didn't need, we just threw out the window.
So I'm sure the sidewalk was very colorful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, since writing the book, have people who went to the school that you didn't have in your refugee group come out and reached out to you and shared more stories?
A lot more people have joined the group. and there's a pile of photos in the group. It is a private group, so what I do is I steer viewers and everyone else towards the Instagram, the Sloan Book 25 Instagram, and there's plenty of photos there from back in the day that they show the building physically. It's very this Gothic 15-story castle and a keep that they put students in. And when you got there, like I was saying earlier, there's no turning back. You already paid for it, so you just had to move in, and the carpet smelled like wet dogs, and there were bugs everywhere. But it was so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now to kind of go back to my first question with the new, how do you feel New York has changed?
The New York that I knew is gone, but I was there in October. Like I said, I still enjoy it. I love it. And every time I go there, I feel like, it's very welcoming to me. I have a really good relationship with it. Never had any problems there or anything. I got in the, downtown Boston, you can get into a scuffle on the Green Line, but New York was always very nice to me.
So now that you've felt this passion in this writing project, has that impacted how you look at your design work and your general career? Yeah?
It is, because, you can say, I am just gonna lean in and do what I do. Or you can say, I'm gonna go try something new, but I'm not gonna let go of this. Or you can say, I'm just gonna let go of everything and just go full frontal with this new adventure. That type of risk taking gets me out of bed in the morning.
So what are some projects that you're excited about now?
I think it's more to do with a philosophy like, don't hold on to your career too tightly. Stay open for other opportunities. And this year, it's been quite a year for opportunities, because it's been a bumpy year for a lot of people. So you have to stay open-minded and try this, try that, and a few months ago I was a creative director at a corporate agency, and then 2 weekends ago I was at an art opening in Cambridge where I had some art installed. So I think that makes me happy. Yeah.
In terms of the writing process, I asked you when you found time to write. What were some pointers that you would give other writers in terms of going from the story that you feel the need to tell to actually doing it and then seeing it through?
It's a good question, Matt. There's two things I did, and I'll just tell you, if they may not, your results may vary. I bought a big industrial pack of sticky notes, and they were just around the house on every floor, and there was a pen nearby. And sometimes I would be walking, through the house to, picking up my kids' shoes or something like that, and I would hear something on the TV or on the stereo, just a turn of words or a phrase, and I would write it on, grab a sticky note and write it down and shove it in my pocket. And then around the end of the week, I would have these sticky notes crumpled on my desk, and I would look at them and I'd throw them away, or I'd look at them and I liked the way that sounds, and I would keep it. That became helpful for raw, sparks, raw material. The other technique was I spent a lot of time, get out of the office, spent a lot of time sitting on the right side of my couch in the living room, so much so that I think I put a dent in it. But when I was writing, I was pretending I was writing to myself sitting on the left side of the couch. So I was talking to that person, trying to make that person laugh. There was no one else in the world, there was no other audience, but I was trying to keep myself interested and make myself laugh, but also stay very honest. And my wife is in editing and publishing in Boston, so she would give me, never read any of the book until it was published. That's,
oh wow,
this is my thing and that's her thing, and I didn't want to burden her with extra work or anything. But she gave me a lot of advice on marketing.
Right, I see. Yeah, so it sounds like just kind of, like you said, just being open and honoring the muse, as it were.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, are plans in line for book 2, or not? Or you'll have, as you said, you have to wait and see what.
Oh, I would love to do a book 2, but what that is, I've already. This is what happened in New York. I could repeat this. I don't know if people need another, 40 chapters of people throwing up out windows and stuff like that, or clubs and parties and things. But maybe, you know, I zoom out a little further and look at the career as an entirety and just be happy that, you know, I got to live the life of an artist and, you know, make some money and raise a family, and makes me quite happy.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the type of people we love to champion here, so it's really
Yeah,
been great to have you.
it's a really good feeling, and to have the, you know, the book sold so much, like first few months, just wild. And it surprised me, and one of the things that I held strong to was just write, and then somehow get it published. You know, it was a long summer of working with the consultant, and then see what happens. And now I'm sitting here talking to you, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, we're really glad to have it. I mean, you know, not for the kids, but
Not for the
a
kids.
great story.
Thank you.
And, you know, and we have the local angle, which we especially love.
Yeah, I do get into a lot of, the first 5 or 6 chapters are Needham, that explain my backstory, Needham High School, and some of the things we did for fun. You know, some of them we shouldn't have done. But Needham in the 80s was fantastic, but we didn't know any better. We were stupid, you know, teenagers. But I see Needham now, and I'm very grateful that I had that experience.
Well, we're grateful to have had you, and we're grateful for you folks for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you next time on the Writer's Block.